At Christmas dinner, my sister clinked her glass and proclaimed, "We took a vote. You're officially cut off." Laughter followed. I smiled, pulled out an envelope, and declared, "Then you won't be needing this." The room remained silent when she saw what was inside. I, 32M, always knew my sister thought she was the golden child, but I never imagined Christmas dinner would become the stage for her ultimate performance. The dining room at Mom's house buzzed with the usual holiday chaos. My 3 siblings, their spouses, and a handful of kids running around while the adults nursed their second glasses of wine. The tension had been building for months. Ever since I'd started my consulting business and moved out of the family orbit, I'd become the target of increasingly passive-aggressive comments. My sister, the self-appointed family spokesperson, had made it clear that my success somehow diminished theirs. Tonight felt different, though. There was an electric anticipation in the air, like everyone was waiting for something. I should have seen it coming when she stood up, her wine glass catching the light from Mom's antique chandelier. The conversations died down as she tapped her knife against the rim with that practiced smile she'd perfected during her sorority days. She announced that they'd taken a vote, and I was officially cut off from family events. The laughter that followed felt rehearsed, like they'd been planning this moment for weeks. My brother nodded along, my younger sister smirked, and even my parents sat there with uncomfortable expressions that told me they'd been part of this discussion. The room felt like it was spinning as she explained how I'd become too good for family traditions, how my business success had made me arrogant and disconnected. She painted a picture of me as the ungrateful brother who'd forgotten where he came from, and everyone nodded along like it was gospel truth. But I just smiled. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. I told them that since they were cutting me off, they probably wouldn't be needing what was inside. My sister's smug expression faltered as I placed the envelope on the table. She asked what it was, and I simply said she should open it and find out. The silence that followed was deafening. Inside that envelope were copies of the loan documents, $847,000 that I'd personally guaranteed to keep the family hardware store afloat over the past 2 years. The same store that employed my brother as manager, gave my younger sister her part-time income, and provided my parents with their retirement nest egg. My sister's face went white as she read the papers. She stammered something about not understanding, but I cut her off. I explained how the store had been hemorrhaging money since 2022, how the bank had been ready to foreclose, and how I'd quietly stepped in to save their livelihoods. The family business they were so proud of, the one that gave them their sense of identity and purpose, would have been gone 18 months ago without my intervention. Every paycheck my brother had collected, every dividend my parents had received, every part-time shift my younger sister had worked, all of it existed because I'd put my personal assets on the line. My brother asked why I'd never told them, and I reminded him of the conversation we'd had when he'd brushed off my concerns about the store's finances. He'd told me to mind my own business and stop trying to control everything. So I had minded my business by quietly saving theirs. I stood up from the table and wished everyone a Merry Christmas. I mentioned that the loan papers would be helpful when they started looking for my replacement as guarantor. The bank would need to know who was taking over the monthly payments and personal liability. As I walked toward the door, my sister called after me, asking what I expected them to do. I turned back and told her exactly what she'd just told me, that it wasn't my problem anymore. The drive home was the most peaceful 20 minutes I'd had in months. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my driveway, but I let it ring. They'd made their choice, and now they could live with the consequences. Update 1. 3 days later, my brother showed up at my office. He looked like he hadn't slept since Christmas, and I could tell from his expression that reality had finally sunk in. He'd spent the morning at the bank, trying to understand the full scope of what I'd been covering. He apologized for the dinner, for going along with my sister's plan, for not appreciating what I'd been doing behind the scenes. He explained how they'd all convinced themselves that I was pulling away from the family because I thought I was better than them. In their minds, cutting me off first was a way of protecting their pride. I listened to everything he had to say, but I didn't make it easy for him. I asked him why it had taken seeing the loan documents to realize that maybe there was more to the story than my sister's narrative. I pointed out that in 2 years of struggling to keep the store afloat, not one of them had asked me how my business was doing or whether I might be facing challenges of my own. He admitted they'd been wrong, but then came the inevitable request. He wanted to know if I'd consider maintaining the guarantee while they figured out a long-term solution. The store was their family legacy, he said. It meant everything to Mom and Dad. I told him I'd think about it, but I had conditions. First, I wanted full transparency about the store's finances going forward. Second, my sister needed to apologize, not just to me, but to the entire family for orchestrating the Christmas ambush. Third, they needed to develop a realistic plan for either turning the store profitable or finding a way to buy me out of the guarantee within 2 years. My brother agreed to everything immediately, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He knew getting my sister to apologize would be like asking her to admit she wasn't the center of the universe. Update 2. The family meeting happened the following Sunday at my parents' house. Everyone was there, including spouses, but the atmosphere was completely different from Christmas dinner. My sister sat stiffly in Mom's favorite armchair, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something I'd never seen before: genuine uncertainty. My parents started by acknowledging that they'd known about my financial support for months, but had been too embarrassed to address it directly. Dad explained how devastating it had been to watch the family business struggle, and how my quiet intervention had allowed them to maintain their dignity while keeping the store alive. Mom cried when she talked about the Christmas dinner, admitting she'd known what my sister was planning but hadn't found the courage to stop it. She'd been caught between protecting my feelings and avoiding family conflict, and she'd chosen poorly. My younger sister spoke next, revealing something that caught everyone off guard. She'd been the one who discovered my involvement with the bank guarantee, having overheard a conversation between the loan officer and Dad months earlier. Instead of bringing it to the family's attention, she'd told my older sister, who had decided to keep it quiet. The room went silent as the implications sank in. My sister hadn't orchestrated the Christmas confrontation out of ignorance. She'd done it knowing full well that I was the one keeping the family business afloat. Her motivation hadn't been family pride or protecting tradition. It had been jealousy, pure and simple. My brother demanded to know why she'd kept quiet about something so important, and her response revealed the depth of her resentment. She felt like I was using money to control the family, making everyone dependent on me so I could feel superior. In her mind, exposing my manipulation at Christmas had been an act of liberation. I asked her how forcing me out of the family was supposed to help with the business I was subsidizing, and she didn't have an answer. The logic had never mattered to her, only the emotional satisfaction of taking me down a peg. The apology, when it finally came, was hollow and reluctant. She said she was sorry for the Christmas dinner and for not telling everyone about the loan guarantee, but I could tell she didn't mean it. She was going through the motions because she had to, not because she'd genuinely reconsidered her actions. I told the family I'd honor my original conditions, but with a modification. I'd maintain the loan guarantee for 6 more months while they developed a transition plan, but I was done being the silent partner who subsidized their lives while absorbing their resentment. Update 3. 6 months later, the family store closed permanently. Despite everyone's best efforts, the business model wasn't viable in the current market, and no one had been willing to invest the time and energy needed for a complete overhaul. The closure was surprisingly peaceful. Dad had finally accepted that holding onto the store wasn't worth the financial strain and family drama it was causing. Mom was relieved to see him free from the daily stress of managing a failing business. My brother found a management position with a regional hardware chain, making more money than he'd ever earned at the family store. My younger sister used the experience as motivation to finish her degree and find full-time work. She later told me that watching the family dynamics play out over those 6 months had been a wake-up call about her own dependence and lack of direction. My sister, however, never fully recovered from the experience. The Christmas confrontation had backfired so spectacularly that her position as the family's informal leader was permanently undermined. She'd lost the moral authority that came from being seen as the protector of family values, and everyone knew it. She moved to another state 8 months after the store closed, claiming it was for her husband's job, but we all knew the real reason. She couldn't handle being in a family dynamic where her judgment and motives were constantly questioned. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to cut me off from the family, she'd ended up isolating herself. Today, my relationship with my parents and siblings is stronger than it's been in years. We get together regularly, but the dynamic is healthier. Everyone understands that love and support have to go both ways, And that financial success doesn't automatically make someone the family villain. I never did get a genuine apology from my sister, but I stopped needing one. The Christmas dinner that was supposed to humiliate me had instead revealed the truth about family loyalty, financial responsibility, and the difference between supporting people you love and enabling their worst impulses. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's simply letting the truth speak for itself and watching the consequences unfold naturally. My sister had orchestrated her own downfall the moment she decided to make assumptions about my motives instead of asking honest questions about my actions. The envelope I'd carried to that Christmas dinner contained more than loan documents. It held 2 years' worth of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and genuine concern for my family's welfare. When she'd dismissed all of that with her little voting ceremony, she'd revealed more about her own character than mine. In the end, the family vote she'd been so proud of had been meaningless. The only vote that mattered was the one the bank would have taken if I hadn't stepped in, and that vote would have been unanimous.